So, so here we are dealing with the Sanket's limited working capital requirement. So we have to find out the working capital requirement. Okay. So first, when we go for calculation of working capital, how we calculate mostly it is current assets minus current liability. So in this way we can calculate the working capital, right? But when we go for vertical analysis, that time in balance sheet it is already given, current assets items are given, current liability items are given, we merely add those items and total. But in this case it is not possible, or it is not given, because here we have to calculate what they have given us, these things, that this is the cost structure, what is the cost of what is the production, yearly production, uh, what are the number of weeks in a year, or what is the process time or the inventory stocking time. All these things are given, but actual figures they not given us. That's why it is we have to find out that figures, and then we can calculate the working capital. So here, for calculation of working capital, we require the current assets items figure and current liability item figures. So that may be the raw material stocks, or the stock of three things: raw material, WIP, finished goods, and debtors. Or maybe cash, bank is also given in our problem. If it is given, then we have to write. And also the current liability, which may include the creditors, outstandings, and bank overdraft. Then we have to consider all those things, but we have to calculate the all these things, then only we can get the numbers. Here we already calculated and get this number. So how we find out that number? It is the uh, question to solve. So here, just a sec. So here, first we have to calculate the weekly production, right? So it is weekly production we have calculated. For calculation of weekly production, we have to know the yearly production, then we can divide it with a number of weeks. If it is given in a days, then we have to divide it with a days, number of days. And if it is given in a uh, number of months, then we have to divide it with the number of months. So in this problem they have given us that 50,000 sale is there, and it is for 100 price, and company work for 50 weeks in a year. That's why while calculating the weekly production, we divided 50,000 yearly production with 50 weeks. So answer is 1000 units per week. So all the time we have to consider this per week production. So in every case, in case of a finding out of stock of raw material, work in progress, or the finished goods, or in case of debtor, creditors, outstandings, all times I have taken here 1000 units as a weekly production. Then we have to multiply it with a rate. The rate is differs for every cost structure item, because raw material has a 30 rupees rate, then labor has a 10 rupees, then overhead has a 20 rupees rate. So we have to consider these rates. So in case of a stock of raw material, we have considered this 30, which is given here as a rate. So we return here rate. And in case of a labor, we have considered the 10 as the rate. See here. In case of a overheads, we have considered the 20 rate. It is also given here 20. So all the time we have to consider these rates. These are the element of cost. And in case of a finished goods, as it is a finished goods, so we have to consider this total cost 60 is the total cost, because it is a finished goods. All elements are applied: raw material, labor, overheads, every cost is applied 100% in order to complete that product. So the finished goods are the complete products. That's why we have to calculate by taking a total cost rate. Okay, so here we consider the 60 as a total cost rate. And for debtor we consider the selling price, because debtor are arise after selling those goods. The goods are sold at a sell price, that's why debtors are calculated here at a selling price, which is 100. Okay, you can see in this cost structure also the cost sell price per unit is 100. So here, as per your nature of what we say items of cost, total current assets, we have to consider the rate. Then we have to take into consideration the weeks. How many weeks the raw material is going to remain in a stock? How many weeks the work in process is going on? How many weeks the finished goods are remaining in a stock? So all these things are already given in this problem. Look here, the company has practiced to storing raw material for 4 weeks. So the raw material stocks remains in stock for 4 weeks. So you can take this 4 weeks while calculating the stock of raw material. So these are three are the stock: A, raw material stock; B, work in progress stock; C, finished goods stock. So all these stocks are there in a current assets. So for raw material stock it is 4 weeks. So accordingly we calculated and we get this 1,20,000. Next they have given us, see, wages and other expenses are paid after lag of 2 weeks, right? So for that purpose, see here. So wages and expenses are paid after lag of 2 weeks. After lag means in gap in payment of gap in payment. So this gap in payment of wages and overheads has a 2 weeks gap. So that's why we consider here 2 weeks outstanding wages, 2 weeks outstanding overheads, 2 weeks, right? So it is written and we calculated those things. So it is 20,000 and 40,000 outstanding wages and overheads respectively. Accordingly, next they have given us, uh, further the debtors enjoy a credit of 10 weeks and company gets a credit of 4 weeks from the supplier. So debtors have 10 weeks period and creditors have 4 weeks. So right there, debtors 10 weeks, 10 lakhs; creditors 4 weeks, calculated 1,20,000. Okay, so next thing, the processing time is 2 weeks. So processing time means it is a work in progress. So work in progress for these three things, three items, we have considered 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. But we also taken here the 50%. What is this 50%? As it is a work in progress, so the production is still going on, it is not completed. If the production is completed, it obviously become a finished goods, but it is not a raw material, it is not a finished goods also, but it is a in between that, that is it is work in progress, it is still going on, it is still we are processing that production. But while calculating work in progress amount, we have to assume that the raw material is put 100% in a work in progress. That means we have put the raw material total raw material is put in a process, but for producing that goods we incur the labor and overhead charges, or we incur the labor and overheads as the process go forward. So it is not initially we incurred 100% labor or overheads. Once the production is complete, once the process is complete, that time only it is 100%, right? So here for assumption purpose or for calculation purpose we are considering that, or we are assuming that the labor and overheads are completed up to 50%, or labor and overheads are applied on work in progress up to 50%. And likewise we assumed, and likewise we calculated this 50% labor and overheads, that is 10,000 and 20,000. Okay, next thing they have given us is finished goods inventory is maintained for 4 weeks. So finished goods we have to calculate by taking 4 weeks. This finished goods is considered with 4 weeks, 60 total cost, that is 2,40,000, right? So it is a inventory which remains in a stock, which remains with company for 4 weeks. Next is, from the above information, prepare a working capital estimates allowing for a 15% contingencies. What is this 15% contingencies? After calculating all these total current assets, then considering all total current liability, we will arrive here, right? We will get a working capital, right? How? Deduct the total current liability from total current assets, we will get this working capital. But we are estimating this working capital, right? Estimation means it is for a future, it is not a real one. We are only assuming that this will be the prices of the cost elements, and we are assuming that yes, this, that means the stock of raw material, stock of finished goods, debtors, creditors have a this much time to incur, have a this much time to pay. So all these are the assumptions, right? From considering the weekly production, or considering the rate of it, all cost elements, or in consideration of the weeks or the time period which required for completion, which required for stocking, which required for paying. All these things are the assumed one. So it is a estimated working capital. As it is not a real one, as it is for a future, for considering this assumptions, we have to assume another thing, that it may change in future, it may have some contingencies in future. It is not a permanent one, it is not stick to that amount, because as it is in reality we are performing this, all these things in reality we are performing the production of the goods. That's why it is a estimation, that's why it is a assumption. So for better side we are assuming that there may be some contingencies in future, and that's why we are taking this 15% as a contingency reserve to cope up with any changes if any happens in future. Okay, so these changes, or to be ready with the fund if any available, sorry, if any required in future. For that purpose we are considering this contingency reserve. And if it is written in your problem that take 15%, then we have to take it as a 15%. If it is stated in problem that take 20% as a contingency, then you have to take 20% as a contingency reserve, and it is calculated on this working capital. So in this case we our working capital is 12 lakh 70,000 na, as it is changed, right? So because this 50% is we have not written earlier, so on this 12 lakh 70,000 only we have to consider this contingency reserve. So right there the 12 lakh 70,000 only. And now calculate the 15% figure. What is 15% of 12 lakh 70,000? What is the amount here? I think it is 1,90,500, right now. Yes, same thing is there. तेच येते ना 1,90,500. So add this contingency reserve to this 12,70,000. We will get this thing 14,60,500. हे बरोबर आलेलं आहे ना सगळे फिगर्स येते. As we have applied a formula here, so all are going to adjust. Though the one or two figures change, but the formula automatically change everything and it will adjust the figures. Yes, it is right now. 14,60,500. So this is the way we have to estimate the working capital. This is the method by which we calculate the working capitals. So here we completed our working capital problem, right? So you can get a screenshot of this. And also take a screenshot of this thing also.